All right, so we're looking at question 2 for the 2024 paper 2, January Human and Social Biology exam. So we want you to follow, subscribe rather, like our content. You can leave comments where possible, and of course share. And if you have any topics or any paper that you want us to do a solution for, you can always indicate to us. I am Mr. Thomas, and I'll be going through this question right now. So it starts by saying, define the term passive transport. When you think of transport, you think about getting something from one place to another. Now, passive transport deals with the transport of, if you're talking about in a not in a human terms, where we use a bus or a car or a bicycle, a bike, we are talking about substances, and so substances move from a high concentration to a low concentration, and high meaning where you have a lot of the substances, right, to a low concentration where you have a small amount of the substances without the use of energy. So no energy is required to move the substance from point A to point B. So that is what passive transport is. Now, we are familiar with some examples. If you think about it, diffusion. So we know diffusion is an example of a passive transport. We also know osmosis, where this transport really focuses on the water molecules moving across a differentially permeable membrane, of course. And that is 2 marks. Now, part 2, it says, state 2 examples of active transport in the human body. Now, when you look at active transport compared to passive transport, the thing about active transport is that it requires energy. Now, in the human body, why does active transport overall requires energy? Is because majority of the time you're going against a concentration gradient, meaning you're moving from low to high concentration. Why would your body want to do that? Let's talk about the absorption of nutrients that occur in the small intestine. So after you eat the one patty there, patty is something that we normally talk about. Do we prefer juicy or tasty patty? Which one do you like more? So if you consume the patty and now you're ready to get the nutrients from this patty, once it is fully broken down, if in the small intestines we still have some nutrients, but in the bloodstream you have a large number of nutrients, your body will still want to basically absorb that nutrients from the small intestine. And this is done via active transport, where it moves. So take a nutrient, for example, sodium. If sodium is high in the bloodstream and the body still wants to take up sodium from the small intestine, then active transport would have been a good way of doing so. If you look in some textbook, if you look online, you will see they mention the sodium potassium pump. And that is a prime example of how active transport will occur. So it moves against a concentration gradient. So it's moving from low to high. So the body will still take up these nutrients, absorb it, because it is still something that they want. All right, you wouldn't want the reverse where it's coming from out of the bloodstream. The other example also happens in the human body, in our kidneys, the nephron. Now, while we create the urine, right? The urine is a filtrate, and when you have different parts of the nephron assisting, we have a concept known as reabsorption or selective reabsorption. Selective in the sense that when you have that filtrate, it contains things like amino acids, it contains other nutrients, glucose. I wouldn't use water because that would have been passive. So those things are reabsorbed into the bloodstream, and this is done by active transport. So in the kidney, the nephron, and also in the small intestine where you have absorption occurring, those are two areas where you have active transport occurring. All right, part 3 says define the term plasma and state how plasma differs from serum. Now, plasma is that liquid portion of the blood. It basically accounts for a part of the volume of the blood, about 55%. Serum is also a part of the blood, but the difference is plasma contains the clotting factors while serum does not. All right. In part B, no, Randa, you need to stop. No, man. You know, we say in one of the popular terms, no, we say, Randa, you have to go down. Randa is she eats lots of salty snacks. Boy, I'm not know if a club social, you know. Club social, she eat, and Randa make it bad for herself. So she's consuming a lot of salty snacks and does not drink much water. Bad idea, Rhonda. Bad idea. As a result, her blood has a very high salt content. Now, the question says, explain how Rhonda's condition might impact the movement of water between her tissues, cells, and the capillaries. Now, we know that the capillaries would have had the blood, and the blood would get so concentrated that the water from the cells of these tissues are now going to try and, combat this high concentration. And so the water will move from the cells, from her tissues. Random, me tell us, one bad idea, So when it moves from the cells, it goes into the capillaries and it increases the volume of the blood. And there's this concept known as homeostasis. You want to have a balance, you want to strike a balance. So we don't want the blood to be too dilute and we don't want it to be too concentrated. But because she's consuming all of this salty snacks, right? It's causing her blood to be concentrated. So her cell tissues, the water from those cells are coming out into the capillaries, trying to dilute, and by doing so, it is increasing the volume of the blood. So this is the body's way of trying to, strike that balance. Now, since those tissues are now lacking the water, the cells become dehydrated. So Rhonda is going to be faced with dehydration. This will cause her tissue cells to not operate as normal because they have this lack of water, right? So it says suggests a health condition that Rhonda is likely to develop if she does not adjust her eating habits. Rhonda, I'm gonna talk to Rhonda for a minute. You need to stop, eat, and we're just using the fatwa. We stop feeding on those salty snacks. Now, what really happens, again, we spoke about the water leaving the tissues, getting into the capillaries, and by doing so, it increases the volume. It increases the volume of the blood. And when it increases the volume of the blood, it's not a normal volume that would have been there. And so the heart is going to need more pressure to pump this additional volume, developing high blood pressure, also known as hypertension. Sometimes even the salts that are in the snack, the sodium content is so high that it causes the blood vessels to constrict, get smaller, and also that will cause high blood pressure. It's less volume for it to pump this, it's less space for it to pump this increased volume of blood, and so she's now going to experience high blood pressure, right? And so really and truly, we really explained the concept of the movement of the water, what would have contributed to the health condition. So because the water is moving from our tissues into the cell, into the capillaries rather, so it's moving from the cells into the capillaries, the blood vessels. This increase in volume of blood is going to cause high blood pressure. And we did say that also the amount of sodium can affect the blood vessels, causing them to be constricted. And when that happens, it's going to reduce the size. And of course, also leading to high blood pressure. There is a condition known as edema, which deals with swelling. And so when another aspect to look at it, when the water leaves the tissue into her bloodstream, sometimes that water leaks back out of the capillaries and it gets in between the tissues. And this is what causes edema, the swelling, right? So Rhonda, you have to be careful, or else you have to be careful. Now, me no know how to them. First it was Randa, now Aaron. Aaron take up himself and walk barefoot in his backyard. And sometimes always in the August, this happening, people. In the August, when 1 week before school, and I can tell you something, in Jamaica, probably the Jamaican mothers beat Aaron on top of it. So even though Aaron would have been under pain, he might get a ass whooping on the fact that, he might walk barefoot. So let's go. It says Aaron is walking barefoot in his backyard. He steps on a contaminated nail and the sole of his foot is punctured. Explain how the components of his blood will work to protect him from getting an infection. So Aaron, sorry for you, but we're going to talk to you about how Aaron. So let's explain. You see, once his foot is punctured by this nail, automatically blood is going to flow. And so while the blood is flowing, it's a good thing. It's a good thing in the sense that the contaminated nail would have had on bacteria, and so the blood flowing out in one direction will kind of minimize the amount of bacteria that is entered. Most definitely though, some of the bacteria will get into his bloodstream. So one thing, the body doesn't want, Aaron body wouldn't want him to bleed out in its entire, the blood. So what is going to happen, you're going to have the platelets come in and they're going to plug. You ever get a puncture tire yet? Or you see somebody go to the tire shop, one of the things that they will do is to say that either you're going to plug the tire, and they basically put something that will stop. And this is stopping that puncture, right, that his foot experienced from the nail. And so it prevents the continuous flow of blood. So we plug the area, right? So the area is plugged. And we say, yeah, but blood is still working now. So then we have the clotting. And you see, because some of the contaminate this bacteria will cause infection, the clotting component, right, the fibrin, is going to isolate some of this bacteria that is in the area, right? And when it isolates it or keep it in that one position, here comes the calvary. You know who is the calvary? The white blood cells. The white blood cells is a defense mechanism or immune system kicks in. It's an area. Anything where they in that area there, the phagocytes are going to get to that area, and all the bacteria that are present, they will engulf those microorganisms in your body, because they're saying, hey, these things are foreign, they're going to come and cause problems, so let's get rid of them. So they start to eat and engulf these bacteria in the area. But some of them bacteria might run off, escape into the blood. And so you have the leukocytes that are responsible for providing or producing antibodies. And the antibodies are going to find these bacteria and they're going to neutralize them so that them can't cause an infection. But you see, the thing here and here are going to, you're going in a pain, because you see, because of all of this that is happening, the area is going to become inflamed, right? It will go swell up, it will look red, and this is due to the activity of your immune system trying to reduce or maintain that condition right there. After a while, the collagen is going to be produced, and that is basically like your dead skin. So after I'm hop around, now you know, say Aaron probably go back out. He probably goes back out in the backyard barefoot, right? And that happens again. But me know him gonna get beaten, right? Or maybe the beating when him get, him now go back out there. Him gonna learn from Aaron, learn from your mistake. So don't go out there, go run up and down, right? So that aspect will basically create a condition that will bring back the contents, replenish the skin, right? Rejuvenate the area so that it goes back to normal. So while he's up and around, after a couple of weeks, he should get back to how it was. And that would have been the end of this question. I do hope it was beneficial. Continue to subscribe, share our content. We really aim at getting 1,000 subscribers by the end of May of this year. So feel free to drop a comment if you basically learned something, if you understand, if you want us to do another paper, another topic from any of the sciences. Remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth you. So all the best on your exam.